morning. Thank you for getting up early and fighting the traffic. I will try to make the next 25 minutes useful for you. So as David mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about the reality of our next reality, and it's kind of based on this book that just came out. There's lots of new things in there that's actually not in the book. But I would encourage you to look at the book at some point as well. So I guess the future, we are at a point where the future is about to diverge, right? It could go very, very good, and it can go very, very bad. And it depends on what we do in the next 5 to 10 years. So this is a critical point for us, our generation, because what we do is very substantial in terms of affecting the future. And this book essentially is a culmination of things that I've been working on for the last 30 years. Neil Stephenson he helped to provide the foreword for the book, and I'm sure you guys know he wrote Snow Crash, which is where the term metaverse comes from, which was kind of the hot thing a couple years ago. No longer the hot thing, but I think it will increasingly become important again. And I think by the end of this talk, you'll understand why. And this book is positioned as a debate between myself and my co-author, Louis Rosenberg. Essentially, the problem with today's books is that usually people buy books that confirm what they already believe. And so there's very little new learning from that. So we've structured that as debate, so you actually do hear both sides, both the optimistic side, which is what I represent, and the pessimistic side, which is what Louis represents. And we've both been in the AI and XR space for 30 plus years, so we're speaking from experience, not like a lot of consultants who are just trying to sell you services. I'm not going to go through all the chapter titles, but essentially we tried to discuss the major 13 questions that we think people are struggling with. And the last one that's probably the most important is, what do we do today so that we actually get to that positive future that's ahead of us versus going towards the negative side. So there's something that Mark Twain said, or at least allegedly said, that I think is quite relevant to what's happening today, is that it ain't what you know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And the problem today is that a lot of people believe a lot of things, and unfortunately, a lot of those things are not necessarily real. And the first one, I think it's something that you guys all know is not true, but it is actually something that a lot of people believe, right? And I won't go through all of these, but essentially today, people really, they don't understand the impact of what these technologies are going to do to us. Whether AI, the capabilities of AI, whether it's going to grow or not, the risk that it brings, as well as the need for doing a race between countries and between companies. These are all issues that are going to have major ramifications, as well as the job implications. There's a lot of people that are afraid of losing their jobs, and they tell each other to make them feel better that, no, it's not going to happen, because in the past, the technology never took away jobs, it only created more. In this case, it actually may be different. Right? But the thing is, even though it's different, you may actually be happier for it, and we'll discuss a little bit about why. So the sovereign AI is something that a lot of companies are talking about, which is to have every company, every country make their own AI, and that somehow makes the world better. And I'll explain a little bit why that isn't the case. People still think that XR devices are giant boxes on your head. We know that that's not the case. So I'll go a little bit into kind of the history of media over the last few thousand years. There's the interactivity dimension, and then there is the immersion and experiential dimension. And when we started, we were cave painting, so it was a fixed, non-interactive, fixed thing that worked in 2 dimensions. And over time, we added additional dimensions and additional levels of interactivity. But with technology today, essentially, we are able now to replicate pretty much reality in the sense of fully interactive, fully immersive, and in all the dimensions of life that we exist in. Now, the funny thing is that final frontier of media is actually something that we already have in us. Every night when we go to bed, we dream, and we are actually in a fully interactive, fully immersive, and something that we cannot tell from reality type of a medium. So we're actually just trying to create something that we already have in us. Now, why do I think that 3D is something that is really important is because if you look over in the history of media over the last few hundred years, we continue to add additional dimensions as we move through different types of medium, from text only to one-dimensional audio to two-dimensional TV to 2.5-dimensional gaming on computers. And now we are actually at a fairly three-dimensional world when we put on our headsets and be able to live in these virtual worlds the way we live in the physical world. We've adapted ourselves over the last few 100,000 years to be optimal in a 3D space. So that naturally should be where we will be headed when we develop the optimal devices we interact with. And as you can see, devices today are already fairly light and somewhat fashionable. But they will get better, right? And if you're a Netflix watcher or a sci-fi reader, you probably have seen this picture, which is the, I guess, fictional headset in the three-body problem. And in which case, this is not just something visual and audio, but it also takes into account tactile and taste and smell and everything. We don't really need to get there. I don't think we don't need to get to a three-body problem device for it to be useful and for it to be something that will be adopted widely. In fact, we are very soon going to face a world where we have devices that are very small and very light that we will depend on more so than we depend on our phones today. And these things are actually, all of these devices are either already on the market or will soon be coming out in the market, right? So we're not that far away. People think these type of devices are very far away, and it's not true, and they are not bulky. And with these type of devices, what we will see is that rather than spending all your time on 2D screens, which we do today, so over 10 hours a day on average globally, we will be spending more and more time on a 3D device or a device on our face. Right? So our screen time will continue to increase, but because that screen is actually something you can see through, you may actually have more time to interact with the people around you, with your loved ones and your friends around you, even though you have a screen on your face most of your day. So talking about media, one of the folks that are kind of the initial philosophers of media is Marshall McLuhan, and he said the medium is the message. What does he mean by that? And I want to kind of explain a little bit because I think a lot of people don't understand what that actually means. Is that the medium itself and the form of the media and how it is distributed actually tells something about the society that it's grown up in. Right? When broadcast media first came, whether it's radio or TV or print, really it's about control and conformity. It's about having a single person decide the message and let everybody know so that they can all conform to that message. We are now at a many-to-many model, which is social media, and it's really about comparing, because everybody's now comparing against everybody else around them, and that's the message that you're trying to send. We will soon be going to a new model of many-to-one, essentially not many necessarily humans to one, but many channels to one, and every single AI agent out there will be making custom content for you as an individual. So what you see and what the person next to you see and hear may actually be very different things. And that's something that was never possible before, but will be something that will be prevalent in the near future. And what that does is it actually allows that message to help you complete yourself as an individual and make you the best version of yourself. So this coming media is actually something that I think is better for society than the ones that we've had in the past. So why does XR need AI? I won't go through this because you guys already know this, because you guys are experts in this space, but pretty much everything that makes the metaverse and makes XR possible wouldn't be possible without AI. And later on, I'm going to go through the opposite of why does AI need XR, which a lot of people don't talk about, which is just as important. So over the last year and a half, 2 years, generative AI has been the hot topic, and everybody, particularly non-tech people, have the first time heard about AI because of things like ChatGPT. But generative AI is not the end-all of AI. It is not where things are going to stop. In fact, it is also not where things have begun. We've had symbolic AI and connections in this AI really since the 1950s. Right? In fact, I studied both of these in the 1990s or in the early 90s, so at least in my career, I mean, these have been around, but nobody cared about it. And it is not the end in the sense of over the next 5 to 10 years, we will get to agentic AI and artificial general intelligence, which takes it to a new level, where these AI capabilities are able to self-direct and get things done, not just answer your questions, right, or just make you a picture. And even in Gen AI, we used to be focused morely just on text. ChatGPT is really a text engine, right? That's why they call it a large language model. But we are now getting into where all of the major frontier models are multimodal models, right? So we're actually now not just putting text in, we're putting video, we're putting audio, we're putting 3D models. All these will be put in, and they will also be able to generate it. And that's going to help us actually solve one of the biggest issues in XR, which means it will be able to create content for us in 3D. So this song was something that was generated from a single prompt. I just asked a question to talk about the metaverse and the future of AI and XR. And it made a song like this. It made the music, it made the lyrics. And if you listen to it, it actually sounds very relevant, right? The picture, the animation, it was all done with one prompt. So I'm not going to go through and listen to all of it. But you can see, from a video perspective, it's already getting there, right? I mean, these are 1-2 minute type videos that are being fully generated, and it's actually relevant in AI. And it's providing things that is not even available in the real world. But what's actually more exciting, and it's not just OpenAI do it, there's multiple companies that are doing, including Chinese companies. What's actually more interesting for me is something that I experienced at South by Southwest this year called Topomancer. It's an app where you go in, it answers 5-10 questions about your history, where did you grow up, what were your favorite things about your childhood, and it instantly makes a 3D XR story based on what you just said. Right? And this is using 1 or 2 year old technology. So if they actually apply some of the newer multimodal models, the capabilities would be even better. But I think what that shows is the potential of where we're getting to when I said bespoke media, is that we will be getting to a point where everything will be generated based on your needs, your interests, your personal preferences. So that actually makes everything interesting. And it's great for entertainment, but it's also great for education, and it could also be used for work and training and anything else. But that's where things are going, right? And the realism of these systems are getting better and better, right? You look at this video I'm showing here. Tell me how many of these objects do you think are real and how many are fake? So the answer is all of them are fake, including the table, right? But from looking at it, you really couldn't tell. That's where we are now, right? And if you take that real-time XR, real-time AI XR content generation together with the new devices that we are getting to, we will be able to not only create complete virtual worlds, but also augment your physical world like that one did with the proper lighting and the proper context. There's a lot of people who also say, oh, but AI is going to hit a wall because we're running out of data. There's just not enough data to train them on. So if you look at where we are today, we're 10 to the 13, 10 to the 14 power in terms of how many bytes of data are being used to train the modern models. In the public available text, there's 10 to the 15 or so, 10 to the 16. So there's 100 times more data out there than in public information than what's being used to train. But what's actually not said is that in private information, there's 10 to the 23 data out there. So all the things that are on your computer, on your phones, on the other places, on private networks and corporate networks, we have a lot of data, right? And we have a lot of data that are being generated. Every year, actually, I think every 9 months or so, the total data in the world doubles. Right? So we have a lot more data than people think, and so that data is going to continue to make these AI more and more intelligent and more capable. Not only that, we essentially also have the ability to generate synthetic data using the newer models to then train the smaller models, so they can feed on itself. So I don't think we want to underestimate the capabilities of these systems. Now, I'm going to go a little bit quicker because I think we're running low on time. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the trajectories and curves of intelligence versus neural complexity. if you look at this chart, this is essentially how many neurons in a particular being and how intelligent it is. And all of these beings also live in communities and part of swarms or part of flocks, and they themselves also have a kind of community or a collective intelligence. But what we find is that these actually are in two very different curves in the sense of, even though you have a lot of extra a total neural count with these swarms, their capability is actually less than a single being with these with the same level of neurons. But the thing that we also don't realize or don't talk about is that these devices that we are now going to compete against, the AI systems and the data centers, they continue to grow. Humans and all of the animals there, we have been fixed pretty much since the beginning of our species. The number of neurons in our brains have not changed. In fact, I think our brains are about 10% smaller than we were 100,000 years ago. But these devices will continue. So we don't need to compete and say, oh, we need to be as smart as AI. At some point in the near future, these AI systems will outthink us. And they're not coming back. And we are not going to be able to catch up, right? Now, you have a lot of people like Jensen Huang who talks about the sovereign AI because they sell a lot more chips because they want to sell it to every country. That's not a great idea because what we do is actually create 200 countries, each with their own AI, each thinking they're the good guys and everybody else is a bad guy. And also dividing the limited resources we have in terms of compute, in terms of talent, and in terms of data to create biased and incomplete AI. We need to go the other way. Right? You see these articles that talk about the race between countries, the race between companies, and creating a Manhattan Project for AI. These are all bad ideas. Right? And we know what happened with the Manhattan Project, and we should not use and weaponize AI in that way. So AGI has huge, huge potentials in terms of making us more productive, making us smarter, making our life better, solving energy crisis, all these other issues that we have in life. So we want to get there as soon as possible versus creating these subpar AIs that are creating negative connotations of everybody else. So there's kind of three main paths people are going through today. There's the doomer camp who says, the future is bad, let's just stop. Because if we stop, the past was always better. We know that's kind of really not true. There's the effective accelerationist, which says the future is great, the dangers in the past, we need to run as fast as possible because that's where the future is going to be. There's now a new camp, I guess, decentralized accelerators would say there's a good path and a bad path. If you choose the right path and run, you're going to be fine. Right, and all of these currently have their issues. We know the future has actually been pretty good over the last few thousand years or tens of thousands of years as we added additional technologies. We know that the future is not always good, and there's going to be bumps, right? And there's actually not necessarily a bear behind us. We don't necessarily have to run. Actually, if we get to this AGI a year from now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now, it doesn't really matter. Right? But if we make the wrong decisions, we can actually really go backwards. And we know that danger is actually in between us and the future. It's not a choice. Once you make that choice, you still have a lot of challenges to overcome. And it's not a single person running. It's actually 8 billion people all trying to get to some place. And these 8 billion people are all tied together with a rope. So that the proper picture we should see is that we are going down a very narrow, very shaky bridge tied together so that if anyone falls, any country, any company, any person falls off of this bridge, we all get dragged down with it, right? So we need to think about this not as a competition, but as a collective project so that we share our resources, pool our capabilities, and then think about safety over speed and think long term. There's definitely a lot of dangers. There's the people talk about the AI takeover. They also talk about alignment problem. I'm actually less worried about these things. The thing that I am worried about is what humans do with it, whether they misuse it, the misinformation, manipulation, and militarization, as well as the job displacement problems that we will have, right? And all of this mental health crisis that we will see. This gentleman, Edward Bullard Linton, he said something that a lot of people have heard, but they probably don't know his name, is that he said, the pen is mightier than the sword. We are now at a point where the prompt is actually mightier than the sword, especially in a year like this where we have elections and all the fake news and information out there. That is absolutely happening, right? You have, Microsoft a few months ago released
Have you ever
this
had,
project
maybe
where
you're in that place right
from
now,
a single
where
picture, you
you
can
wanna
create
turn your
a
life
person
around,
saying
and
something
you know
that they
somewhere
cannot
deep
tell
in your
between
soul,
them and something that
there
was
could be
videoed.
some decisions that
And you can take a
have to
person's
make.
voice with just a few sentences
like, it's
and
like
be able to
things,
create a
something was
clone of their
decided.
voice. OpenAI has their GPT-4. Oh, can we turn the sound up a little bit? If you hear the tonation of the discussion, you can hear this AI talking to this gentleman and trying to manipulate him to do something.
I don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to throw this on.
And
what
this
do you
is
think?
Technology that's available today, right? So these little giggles and little expressions, we are very manipulable animals, and these technologies are available today, right? There's also the danger of misusing it for genetic engineering. You already have CRISPR, open CRISPR, which essentially you can prompt to genes, right? And think about what's capable there. So I'm not going to go through all these job displacement issues, but what people have said is, cognitive jobs are in danger, but manual labor is safe. Really? If you look at what's happening today, you have these robots that are, well, somehow it's not working, but you can see it actually shows these robots, doing chores at home and tricks that probably a lot of humans can't do, and they're only $16,000, right? If you had that, I think there's a lot of people who would choose that over hiring humans. And if you look at the job displacement issues that happened, if we look at how horses were replaced by cars in the 1900s, it took 30 years for it to be completely replaced. But if you look at a place like New York, which was, in 1900, there was essentially one car and all horses, to 1913, just 13 years later, it was all cars and one horse, right? We, in this case, we are the horses, because the things that we can do will be fully replaceable by these capabilities of these AI systems. But I think I'm a little bit low on time. I'm going to go run really quick. But I think the metaverse can actually help. It will be able to provide us a place and an outlet for our energies. Even if we don't work, we will still be able to get value, have purpose, and create commerce, learn, do other things inside a virtual world, which is why the metaverse and why XR is so important to our world, right? There's a lot of things that we need to do to help create a proper future, things like better education, things like regulatory bodies, more countermeasures for the risks that are going to be generated, better UBI safety net systems, and a global infrastructure for the metaverse. So some of this is already happening, right? We already have the Singapore reskilling initiatives that are paying any middle-aged person to get re-educated. We have people like Bernie, who's talking about going to a 4-day work week in the US, which is unthought of before, or people wouldn't think about it. You have the AI Act that's happening in Europe that's already helping to bring this to light. And you have the United Nations coming with also their AI resolution that's been agreed by over 100 countries. So things are actually happening faster than I would have expected for this space. And China, US, and EU have all agreed on safety measures through the recent safety summits. So we are definitely on our way. And AI is not a tool, not just a tool, right? Today is a tool, yesterday was a tool, but just like every technology, it will go through to this next phase. Very soon it will become our patrons, because it will have created so much productivity that we will be freed from doing what we are forced to do into something that we would want to do. So why was this statue created is because Michelangelo was adopted by the Medici family, and they gave him training and gave him resources and said, here, have 3 years and make something beautiful. And he was able to do that. We will all soon be able to be given that type of a gift so that we have the free time to do things that we love versus the things that we have to do. And in time, we will get to the next phase, which is where AI becomes our progeny. Because AI today is trained on all the history and memes and culture of our human society over the last tens of thousands of years. And it will continue to take that forward. So we should not be afraid of it. We should not be afraid of it being successful. We should actually be proud of it, just like we are our children when that happens. So why does AI need XR? Because XR is the best interface for AI. I think Ori said that before in some of his prior talks. But it also provides the virtual worlds to provide endless resources for training data. It provides a sandbox for us to do alignment so that we don't get into those alignment problems that we talked about. It provides the most efficient channel for us to do teleop training. It provides a smoother path for job displacement, so we have a parallel market. It also provides a better learning and reskilling capabilities for all of those people that will be displaced. Additionally, it's going to alleviate all of the mental health, a lot of the mental health crisis that we have, because when people lose their jobs, they need to have a new purpose in life. And we will have a global virtual economy that allows us to create more equality and spread of wealth between countries, right? And we also will create greater understanding, which is really key. Now, I'm coming to the end of my talk, and I think we all have to play a role. And what we do today is going to make an impact, right? So if you are an AI lab, we need to prioritize safety over speed. If you are a content platform, we need to prioritize meaning over manipulation. If you're a corporate leader, we need to prioritize good of the people versus greed. And if you are a government and a policymaker, we need to make sure that the people are where the priority is versus gaining and maintaining power. And as individuals, we all have a responsibility to focus on the substance versus our own status, right? So it's really more about summing it up. It's really more about thinking longer term versus shorter term of where we are today. And people talk about the overview effect. When astronauts go into space, they come back and they say, well, I have a new perspective on life, because when they go into space, they see that there's no borders between countries. And we are all on the same single planet, and we need to make sure that we think with that holistic perspective. And I really hope that you guys can help spread that message. Right, here are some folks, people from Ray Kurzweil to Kevin Kelly to Peter Diamandis. They've all read the book and have said amazing things about it. And I hope you have a chance to read it and be able to get some value out of it. So thank you all for your time. And I'm around all day, so come by and say hi and ask any questions you have. Thanks.